Welcome to episode 10 of Islington Mill and, the monthly podcast series about the cultural life and times of one of the UK's most beloved artist-led creative hubs, Salford's Islington Mill. For this month's episode of Islington Mill and, I've spoken to Nick Spalding, who runs both the MIRAGE Bar and LURID Ultra Hybrid. MIRAGE Bar being the new bar that's popped up on the ground floor of Islington Mill that casts an eerie but lovely pink and purplish neon glow into the night out the new windows that are on the first floor of Islington Mill's main building. And LURID Ultra Hybrid is where MIRAGE Bar was based before, on the Fridge building on Unit 2 behind Islington Mill, where a lot of the parties have been happening over the last kind of year and a half before Partisan moved into the club space on the ground floor of Islington Mill. So these are two distinct entities, but they share a lot of similarities, and they're both run by Nick and his business and crime partner Pat Butcher, aka Pam St. Clements. I'll be giving you a lot more information. Well, it'll be Nick who'll be giving you all the download and all the info on how he came to work in such troubled circumstances with the legendary Pat Butcher. Both LURID Ultra Hybrid and MIRAGE Bar have done a lot to bring back a great sense of fun to Islington Mill, especially over the last wee while all the construction has been still going on and dragging on and on, it seems. So it was a real pleasure to sit down with Nick in the actual MIRAGE Bar, which used to be the gallery space on the ground floor of Islington Mill, and now, as I mentioned previously, it's had the windows put in, which have made such a massive difference, as now the general public and random passers-by can actually see into Islington Mill from the street, which is quite a new thing that in the 25 year history of the building hasn't really happened before. So I sat down with Nick in MIRAGE Bar itself on Tuesday, the 21st of February. So it's a very recent interview, this. And yeah, we've got a lot to chat about Nick's background, about the aesthetics of the bar, and also what he's hoping to achieve with it being based in Islington Mill. So without further ado, I'm going to hand myself back over to myself, speaking to Nick Spalding about LURID Ultra Hybrid and MIRAGE Bar. So it's rolling. Shall we go?
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm here with Nick in MIRAGE Bar 2, which is on the ground floor of Islington Mill. How are you doing, Nick? You alright?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah, no, I'm having fun.
Cool. We're already having fun. We've only just begun.
We've done a few apples, haven't we?
We have a few apples in. Can you tell me what is MIRAGE Bar? And what is LURID Ultra Hybrid? What is MIRAGE Bar? Take me through the history of what this is.
So MIRAGE Bar is a queer cocktail bar, formerly owned by Pat Butcher. Oh, actually, though now currently owned by, the full story is she's owning it again now.
Oh.
LURID Ultra Hybrid is a queer gay club, or queer club, out in the desert, which is in Unit 2 in Islington Mill.
Mm-hmm.
And MIRAGE Bar is in the main building is Islington Mill, and it's open to the public in the way that LURID Ultra Hybrid is only really open for events, specific events.
Okay.
But this is open to the public every Friday night from 7 to 11 p.m. for 2-for-1 daiquiris.
Cool.
So it's pretty cheap, and it's just a good place for queer people and all people to meet up and have fun on a Friday night, basically.
Cool. So which came first, LURID Ultra Hybrid or MIRAGE Bar?
MIRAGE came first. So MIRAGE, the first version of MIRAGE was at Fat Out Fest 2 years ago, and that was in the Fridge at that time. That was a really good version. It was quite a pure version of it because the Fridge is a gorgeous blank canvas, and anyone that knows it has probably seen so many different things look beautiful in there because it really shows them off. And I've said this to many people, but it's the space I've been dreaming of for about 10 years. The Fridge is just a gorgeous space. Yeah, I love it. So, but LURID Ultra Hybrid is for more kind of pumping club nights and gigs, cabaret. We've had all sorts of different things in there. It's a very extremely versatile space for events. And Mirage Bar is Pat Butcher's. It's a kind of condensed version, I guess, of the club, in that it's just a more kind of sleepy, chill out place that people can crucially meet in, because I wanted it to be a place that queer people can meet all the time. And I noticed that it wasn't happening in the club. People came in their groups and then left in their groups, which was fine, because that's probably the nature of the club. But it's such a big space, it's very difficult for people to actually meet. But in Mirage, I've seen it already. People are really meeting and chatting and getting to know each other, and that's what the project was all about. So this has been a really successful version of it, and I'm really excited about the future of the project in this space. I think it's
cool. Before we get to the future, though, how did the hookup with Fat Out and then Islington Mill for Mirage version 1 happen?
Right. I mean, it's quite a long story.
Good. We're here for long stories.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll start at the beginning, but this project is something that I've had in my head for about 10 years, and I lived in a warehouse in Bermondsey called Wilds Rents, where we used to have really big silly parties where we dressed up loads and kind of made weird drinks, and it was just very, very silly, basically. And there's quite a lot of gay people in that building, in that living space, and we all probably wanted a gay club, a queer club, or a queer bar that we felt was our kind of place. And so I guess we put on just lots of nights generally, but it's not necessarily nights, but events there. It was just a very busy event, place for parties and stuff. And I think we just all wanted a non-mainstream gay bar or gay club where we could hang out, really. And there wasn't really one in London that I knew of, but we'd all been to Roses in Berlin, which was basically a place of pilgrimage for...
I've been there.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it's one of those places that people who come back from Berlin talk about.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then so you tell your mates, and then they're all like, I'm going to Berlin because I want to go to Roses.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that this one day, I mean, maybe it's a pipe dream, but would be a UK version of Roses, like a weirdo gay club, a weirdo gay bar. That non-mainstream gay people feel it speaks to them, and it's their kind of a place. And they can, I just wanted a good gay bar, basically. Why are they all so basic? I just don't get it.
It is true. So how did the hookup with Fat Out happen then?
Oh, sorry, didn't say that. Yeah, so that happened. So we did Pride as a Protest in Unit 2 with Partisan, because I've done loads of work with Partisan before, doing sets for Fatty Acid. That's kind of where I started and got into the queer scene, is by doing the set for Fatty Acid.
Put a pin in that. You were living in London.
Yes.
So how did you end up in Manchester and Salford then?
Oh, good point. Right, so my day job is at that time, was almost exclusively for CBBC. It's now kind of, I work on many different telly shows doing the props for them.
Okay.
Props and set and props is what I do. And CBBC obviously moved up here, and I'd always wanted to work for CBBC, so I followed that. Though not, I didn't move up when CBBC came up here. I kind of came later, basically.
Okay, yeah. And then Fat Out, how did that happen?
So that was through Partisan. We were doing Pride as a Protest in Unit 2, and I did an art show. The first event for Lurid Ultra Hybrid was an art show called Cloudburst. That was within Pride as a Protest, and I just got lots of my pals, and we put on a really great art show, basically. And it had like a nice fun vibe, and also we made daiquiris for the first time then, but not very successfully, actually, it turned out, because I couldn't work the machine at that time. But then I got a bit better at it. So at the end of that, at the end of the end of Pride as a Protest, Emma asked me if I would like to help out on Fat Out Fest and do something for Fat Out Fest. And so that's when we started talking about me using the fridge to do an art exhibition, basically, for Fat Out Fest. And the thing that I was dreaming of at that time was this cocktail bar owned by Pat Butcher.
So how did you meet Pat? How did Pat get involved in Lurid Ultra Hybrid and Mirage Bar?
So me and Pat go way back, actually. I mean, in real life, I loved EastEnders when I was about 13. I was just obsessed with it.
I mean, she's an icon.
Isn't she? She's
incredible. hands down, one of the all-time great British people, but also, I don't know, how would you describe her aesthetic? Like butch femme? I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, I don't know, just for the benefit of people. Okay, this is a good question. For the benefit of people who may be listening to this outside the UK, tell us who Pat Butcher is.
Right. So Pat Butcher is probably, well, for a lot of people, one of the most famous EastEnders ever. So a character in EastEnders who has so when I think of Pat, I think of like a defiant bitch. Mm-hmm. She just doesn't take any shit and she looks amazing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about her. Mm. And so, yeah, Pat's character is quite glamorous, but with a history.
Yeah.
And what else could I say about her?
I feel like it's interesting that you said glamorous, because I think that's what I'm trying to... She fits very much into that kind of hard glamour mold, hard glamour. And the other people that I think of who are like that as well, there was a character in Coronation Street who, not the same as Pat, but basically, for me as well, like, Pat's got a very dykey vibe, for want of a better phrase. Yeah. She comes off as very lesbian in a really good way, but also her look is... She's got short hair, and she wears kind of harsh makeup, and she's kind of, I don't know, she still is definitely a woman, but a woman who has kind of masculine, I don't know how to describe it, but she's kind of like a butch woman, but she's still glamorous and stuff. And then there was the woman who, she used to be in Coronation Street, and now she's gone on to have a very good acting career of her own. Oh, yeah. I can't remember her name. She's in a TV show at the moment about police. There was her and there was another one that were kind of similar, but they were much more feminine. But Pat, to me, always, and also she's a large lady, and as a big person, I'm always like, it's great to see like big people on TV who are very not sad sacks, basically, and Pat was never a sad sack. I don't know, I find it very hard to describe Pat Butcher. I'm trying to think of other characters, maybe, but maybe what do you want to expand on that? Like.
Oh, I think you got that really well, actually.
Yeah,
yeah, I think that was quite right. That.
So how did Pat get involved in Mirage? Let's go back to that.
So Pat is the owner of Mirage, and well, the founder of Mirage, really. I'm just her apprentice.
Okay.
So to give the full story of the bar is that after nuclear winter, Pat Butcher went to the last fertile place on Earth, which was an oasis in the desert in Libya, and her plan was to set up queer utopia out in the desert. And so she did do that. She set up this bar and she called it Mirage. Then I became her apprentice, just helping her out, sweeping the floor, that kind of business. And then on the night before Fat Out Fest, she went out for cigarettes and never came back and left me holding the bar. I know. I was heartbroken, briefly. Yeah. But actually, quite soon after, I renamed the bar LURID ULTRA HYBRID, and then turned it into a pumping gay club, which hopefully is still doing now. Yeah. And then we caught up with Pat the next summer at Lowry's Film telenovela out in the car park just outside Unit 2, LURID ULTRA HYBRID. And at that time, Pat was in prison in Rio for traffic offences. And that was the next time we saw her. And we're seeing her again now. Oh, in fact, actually, we did see her briefly on the run, actually at Last Beach, which was at Sounds from the Other City, and that was, she had an incense den on the beach where Miami Vice was filmed, and because she was working as an extra on Miami Vice. So that was actually the next time we caught up with her. And then we're now seeing her come back because she's out on parole now. She's done her 6 months inside. She's out on parole.
She's done her bird. She's done her choking. She's done her time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's absolutely livid about what I've done with her legacy. I've pissed it up the wall. And so she's opened a new version of Mirage in main building Islington Mill, and she wants to run me out of business. And it's got this, and she's doing that by opening from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock every Friday night.
Cool.
There it is.
Oh, I wouldn't like to get on the wrong side of Pat, to be honest.
She'd get you, but she'd get you later. You wouldn't even know it was her.
Stealth.
Yeah, she'd super glue your locks.
Yeah. Sorry?
She'd super glue your locks.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And your car.
Yeah, the long game.
Yeah.
She'll do some very subtle ID, some very subtly take your identity and like use it for something, and then you won't find out for a couple of years, and you're like, what is this? Oh my god, Pat.
Yeah. And you'd know it was her, but you wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
She's long gone.
She's gone. She's long gone. That's interesting as well, because like reading through some of the promo material, and I was kind of like, Pam St. Clements is the actress's name, isn't it? And I was kind of like, is she dead? Yes, I think she's dead. But now you told me that she's not dead. And it's kind of a funny kind of like, she's such an iconic British character from mainstream British media, but I don't know, how can she simultaneously be in my head, oh yeah, I think Pam St. Clements is dead, but now we're finding out that she's not. But I think it's maybe got to do with the fact that Pat Butcher isn't around anymore. That you're kind of like, oh, is that person dead? Or maybe they are, because I don't see them on telly that much anymore. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just an interesting thing to be like, is she alive or is she dead? And then coming here today, I assume Pam St. Clements was dead, but then you told me that she's not, she's actually alive.
Yeah, and that confusion between the character, Pat Butcher, and the reality of the actor, Pam St. Clements, is, I find, very exciting. And so I'm definitely really up for, like, continuing that confusion. And sometimes when I refer to Pat, it's Pat, or sometimes it's Pam St. Clement. I think on the website it's Pam St. Clement and Pat, like simultaneously on different pages of the website.
She's one of those. She's one of those actors that just did the same role for so long that their life must have just morphed into that thing. Like, and it is interesting as well because, like I said earlier, she does give a very lesbian vibe. She's got very short hair. She's quite butch, but quite like hard femme, that kind of thing that is really hard to articulate, but queers know what I'm talking about. That kind of thing. And I always assumed, I heard when I was a kid growing up that her partner was Moira Stewart.
Yeah, I think that's actually not true.
Okay.
Because I've researched that really heavily as well, because I also thought the same thing and have been dining out on that story for ages. Yeah. And then I thought, I better just fact check this because I'm telling everybody this. Yeah. And then it's actually not true, apparently.
Yeah, I wonder where that came from though, because that was really big, like... That's also kind of like, does that mean that Moira Stewart isn't gay? I don't know. Not that it matters, really. But then also, is Pam St. Clements actually gay?
So I think she's bisexual.
Okay.
And that's what I've read online. So
yeah.
I think it's probably true.
She's also someone who comes from an era where she probably just wouldn't come out.
Probably, yeah.
Because I don't know now, but do you know how old she is now? She's in her 70s at least.
I think probably 70s, but I'm not sure on that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing 70s.
She was also somebody who like probably looked older than what she was.
Yeah, definitely.
I think in something like a soap opera, I think that's quite a common thing to just like, you know, get someone who, make them someone who will be able to play an old character for a long time, so they cast them younger. Yeah. And make them up to look older, so that, you know, like, she'll always be like over 50 for the next 20 years. Yeah. Even if she was like in her late 30s when she did it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. They've kind of got this like a almost timeless aesthetic, haven't they? That they're just like, they're always the same. They're just the same.
She never changed her style. She always had the same hair, always had like big earrings were one of her trademarks. And I don't know, whenever I see pictures of Pam St. Clements, it's just like, she just is Pat. Like, she just still looks like that. It's like she got the one look to do the role in EastEnders, and then just like kept it for life.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're never going to get a better role than that, I reckon.
No, yeah, I guess not.
For me, maybe not for an actor.
Well, I think there'd be actors who would contradict that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I also think like she got like. So for people who don't know, her partner in the soap was Frank Butcher. Who is quite iconic to me because he's very daddy. He's very much the kind of daddy kind of character that I'm into. And they must, like, if you're cast in a soap opera but your character is a bit shit, it must be a bit of a nightmare. But if you're cast as something like Pat, or someone like Pat who has this other iconic partner, and you're portraying these people who are very kind of integral to British, we all know people like that. They're real, like that's a real... Those kind of people, Pat and Frank, are like real British characters that you meet on the street and stuff, but you rarely see that on TV, I think, until basically EastEnders came along and put them front and centre. Yeah. And that's like, for that, for Pam St. Clements must have been like, I don't know, I would imagine she was very happy with that, because it's like an iconic character, she'd get her teeth into it, something with real depth and gravitas. But at the same time, some of the other characters on British soap operas are just like, oh God, what a nightmare if you were cast as that. You wouldn't recover from that.
No, absolutely not.
What's your major attraction to Pam St. Clements?
I think it's probably her fierceness. I reckon she's uncompromising. And you would not win in a fight against her. She would be fighting. You'd be out in the car park and she'd have a knife. She's going to fight dirty. So probably that. Like you're not going to win against her. and her kind of relentless makeup.
I'm just like, what I've been trying to say and it's really hard to articulate in words and to verbalize is the look. Is the look that's simultaneously hard and fierce, but also feminine in certain ways, like big earrings, animal print, harsh makeup, almost draggy. Actually, it's almost like a parody of femininity in a way. It's not really though. It's not like she's taking it, but she's not. It's just who she is. But it's just a really weird, and that's kind of what I've been trying. I still don't know how to say it. It's easier if you see a picture of people like this, who I don't know how to just really blur the lines of like femininity and masculinity as well. It's really interesting. Like, and also I feel like in this age of like Drag Race and the kind of male to female, not impersonation because that's kind of a cliched phrase, but the kind of playfulness of males pretending to be females. I feel like there's not enough attention given to AFAB people who then inhabit a much more butch, masculine aesthetic and role than there is about people who were born male who now inhabit very feminine roles and stuff. So I find Pat very interesting in that kind of like, we are living in a society that queerness is becoming more and more accepted, but still the kind of queerness that is getting a lot of attention is still very much based in femininity and prettiness and what passes as a pretty femme. And Pat Butcher is definitely not that, but she's still feminine, and she's still like, wouldn't say she's pretty, but she's not ugly. Like she's like attractive in that way.
Successful prostitute.
Is she?
She used to be.
Really? I'm sure. Like I had a phase of watching EastEnders when I was a lot younger, but it doesn't. Not a lot of it has really stuck with me. But like Pat and Frank, I mean, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, like Pat Butcher, Frank Butcher, and Barbara Windsor's character. They're the ones that I think about. The ones who got divorced, the famous Christmas divorce, that was before my time in the 80s, I think, when it first started. I think they're quite iconic as well. But
is that Angie and Den?
Yes, Angie and Den.
Yeah, they're good.
And then I also remember Patsy. Patsy Palmer?
Patsy Palmer's amazing.
Is Patsy Palmer the actress or the character, though?
The actress. It's Bianca.
Bianca. And what was her boyfriend called? Ricky. Yeah.
I've met Bianca.
You've met her?
Yeah.
What's she like?
She was fine. She's just an actress. I mean, she was. Yeah, though she was a bit of a diva, but not really to me. So I didn't.
Okay. I always get her confused with the person who Daniela Westbrook, who took so much cocaine in the 90s that their septum fell in.
Oh, love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's Michelle, I think.
Right, okay.
She's Grant and Phil's sister, I think. But not at the time I watched it. She got replaced by a different actress. Because of the nose, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay, let's get further away from EastEnders.
Can we talk about EastEnders more?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to.
No. Ask me your questions.
Okay. So Pat set this up in response to you turning the first Mirage Bar into Lurid Ultra Hybrid.
That's it, yeah. She doesn't like clubbing.
She doesn't like clubbing?
No way.
But obviously you do. Do you?
Yeah, I love clubbing, yeah.
So what was like... Yeah, you talked about like wanting to create a space where queer people could meet and stuff, which you're saying now that the Mirage Bar fulfills that a bit better than Lurid Ultra Hybrid because...
Yeah, because it's quieter and it's more kind of compact, so people come in here and they talk to each other, whereas really in Lurid you go there to see the show and then, well, you probably don't leave, but you kind of filter out, I guess, after the event. but you're really there with your pals on Lurid. Or, well, I say you. I mean, people seem to be arriving with their groups of friends and then leaving with their groups of friends.
I think maybe what that is because Lurid Ultra Hybrid is on the estate, and people aren't as au fait with where the estate is and where the venue is on the estate. So people rarely arrive there on their own.
Oh yeah,
They will
right.
more likely rock up with groups of people because they don't know where they're going, so they might have a little adventure trying to find this place, and it's safer to do that on their own. Whereas here, right now in Mirage 2, and this is something I want to talk about as well, we're right on the ground floor of Islington Mill, so it's right beside the front door of Islington Mill, and I think that I mean, one thing that's worth talking about as well is these windows that are here. Because the space that we're in now, just for the listeners, this used to be the gallery space, which is on the ground floor. So you walk in the front door, walk down the corridor, turn right, and you're here. But it used to be just a dedicated gallery space with completely white walls on each side. But now, this side where we're sitting, they've taken down the walls that were over the windows and they've completely exposed the windows and the ground floor, almost the full, well, not quite, you can't see into the club space, but they've exposed some of the ground floor of Islington Mill to the public, to anyone walking by. It's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit weird for me to be in this room and have it flooded with daylight. It's really nice.
Right.
But so many of my experiences of being in this room, either looking at shows or working here or whatever, it was just a white cube that could have almost been anywhere. Whereas now it's I'm looking out and there's the school there, and there's literally parents are coming up now waiting for their kids to come out of the school. And I don't know. I mean, had you seen the space before?
Yes, I had visited it once for a show, or maybe twice actually. But as before the windows came in, and I don't really have a lot of I don't have much of a memory of the space, if I'm honest. But I was aware that it was a gallery space, but I don't remember kind of how big it was or what I saw there or anything like that. But now it's an extremely prominent position. People can look in. Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Have you had any negative feedback? Because it's very exposed. It's just, to me, it's it's very defining of the new era of Islington Mill that we're heading into. Because these windows that were traditionally, we did an event here, oh God, it was a decade ago now, it makes me feel old, called Bummer Camp.
Oh, yeah.
And we put A0 letters in each of the windows here that said BUMME or CAMP, so it was the whole thing was spelled out. Obviously we couldn't do that now because those boarded up window boards that we had put the thing on are gone now, and it's actually windows looking out. But there's a school over there, and there's a lot of people around here who live around here, and when we put the Bummer Camp sign up on that, there was complaints from the neighbours, and they said there's a school right there, you can't be putting that up there, even though it's a double entendre.
Right.
If your kids ask you what a bummer is, just say, somebody who's not in a nice way, somebody who's not feeling very well, you feel a bit bummed out. That's not.
Right.
But we got complaints from the neighbours that it was promoting whatever. So I'm just wondering, has there been any negative feedback for Mirage being in here with these windows here and being suddenly what happens inside Islington Mill is very visible to people who don't even know that this place exists, or they just walk past and go, what's in there? And they look in and it's a bar. It's it's got neon stuff in it. Has there been any, has anybody come in and has been a bit what is this place?
Not in that respect, and certainly no one has been negative about it. And we're not really doing anything that sordid in here. So I think probably people just quite like the coloured light. Everyone just likes the coloured light, which actually is not my idea. Bill put them in, those pink ones.
Oh yeah, cool.
And that coloured light is what a lot of people have been saying is exciting about, particularly seeing it from the street.
Yeah, because when you see it from a distance, there's this glow of these things. Could we talk about the colours then? Because one of the kind of defining things of both this and Lurid is the kind of neon aesthetic. How would you describe this aesthetic?
So it's probably best to describe the aesthetic and talk about the name at the same time.
Okay.
Because the name of the project is LURID Ultra Hybrid, and it refers to kind of a creature that is lurid, radioactive. No, so lurid, bright in colour, ultra, radioactive, hybrid, two living things squished together into one new creature. And it's essentially a creature that came into existence after nuclear winter and was charged with two creatures charged with radiation and then got fused together. And so that is the story of the name. And so that is why all of the sculptures are lit with UV light and are fluorescent, because the life that grew back after nuclear winter is radioactive, basically. And it's lit with UV light because the radiation burnt the sky and burnt the sun, and so you just get UV light. The sun only emits UV light now, basically.
Right, okay.
But that's fine because the crops still grow, everyone's happy. It looks great at sunset.
What does Pat's makeup look like under all this UV light?
Yeah.
Has she changed her makeup game?
Just shiny, babe.
Shiny, yeah.
She looks like shit.
Like, what is... It's... I'm like... Oh, God. Right, so we're dealing in a aural medium, and a lot of the stuff in here is very visual. Could you just give us just give the listeners a description of some of, like, this is your work that's in here? Could you give them a description of what the stuff is and kind of what your aesthetic is?
Absolutely, yes. So the sculptures are made... They've pretty much all got, just to talk about quickly how I built them, because people are always interested in that. They've got a timber frame, and then the bulk of it is mostly expanding foam, and some of it's polystyrene. And the kind of that texture that's like bubbly on these cacti that we're looking at over here is that's kind of beads of expanding foam, basically. And then that is coated in plaster and PVA glue, which sets really hard. And so it's got a kind of gloopy, dribbly, bubbly aesthetic, and so most of the sculptures do. Yeah. Because they've kind of, I don't know, maybe they've been like bubbling when they were burning in radiation or something like that.
It also looks a bit underwater.
Yeah, it's quite corally.
Mollusk? No, not mollusk.
Oh, coral. Do you think
coral?
Coral. Yeah, very much coral. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you tell me about your practice, your artistic practice?
So I mostly make sculpture. So I also do props and set and props for telly. But as an artist, I'm a sculptor, really. I can paint a bit, but it's not that good.
Didn't stop a lot of them, eh?
Yeah, it's about effort. But no, so yeah, mostly I make sculpture, and I generally make sculpture about life, kind of weird nature. That's probably what all the sculptures are about. And there's a big tree. So in the LURID Ultra Hybrid, the club, the tree, it's called the dragon blood tree. That is where the fruit for the daiquiris actually comes from. So because I didn't actually mention that Mirage is a daiquiri bar, mostly a cocktail bar. Okay. And we make the daiquiris from the fruit of that dragon blood tree, which is this huge radioactive kind of palm tree type of a vibe. That's in the club, and that's kind of like the emblem of the club, I guess. Yeah. And then the other sculpture is, I mean, there's loads of sculptures in there, but the other kind of big one at the moment is the Fatberg, which I made for that was for the last Fat Out Fest, which was in October. I'm not very good at dates, but October. This year, and that one is a Fatberg that was just lying around, and it kind of gorged itself on radiation and sprouted these blooms, which it was kind of a bit too much. There was too much of a radioactive charge, and it's made it sick, and he's gone and vomed all down his front. So that's why he's got orange vom all over his front.
What about this table that's here in the middle? That's got kind of eggs things in it.
Booby table. That one.
Booby table.
Yeah. That one is an altar in the temple. It's I wanted it to have a slightly spiritual vibe as well. It's also a goth bar. I haven't mentioned it's a goth bar, and
it's a very multicoloured goth bar. I'll give it that.
So there's kind of a little bit of I'm quite interested in having a little bit of religious imagery in here. It's quite discreet though. I mean, it's not obviously an altar, that table, but that was what I was thinking about when I was making that table.
Yeah. it is quite like, it's such a change for Islington Mill, just the being here. Like, how have you found being in the mill?
It would never have happened without Islington Mill.
Okay.
So I'm extremely grateful to Islington Mill, and particularly Bill, Maury, Rachel and Rivka, who have supported me in bringing this to life. And I met, actually, Bill and Maury, though I met Maury first, but then it was at Queer Artists Talking Circle that Bill said, we've actually got space for your project, and that is Greg Thorpe's project, who is also invested in Islington Mill, as you know. And so without Islington Mill, it just wouldn't have happened. It would still be an idea in my head. So it's amazing, really, that my dream has come to life through Islington Mill's support. And I'm, but just extremely grateful for all their help in making this happen.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I feel like it's the first, because I feel like even though Partisan have taken over the club space now, we did a podcast with them 2 podcasts ago talking about that. I feel like Mirage 2, where we are at the moment, is the most kind of visible, visible and like up and running, openly kind of visible aspect of this new era of Islington Mill that we're going into. And it's the whole, like I said before, about opening up these windows, so there's actually sunlight coming in here and people can see in and stuff. It's it's an exciting time in terms of like what's going on at the mill. I mean, I know I've been saying this in every podcast. It's kind of one of the reasons why I'm making these podcasts, is document this time and all the different people and all the different work that's going on at Islington Mill at the moment, because it is very exciting. But I feel like Mirage is like the most visible and kind of out there, accessible thing of that at the moment, because it's not finished yet. Like, they're still like looking out into the courtyard and they're still building out there and stuff, and it's not fully functional, up and running yet. But this is here and it's open quite a lot. Like, what's been some of your favourite events that you've had here over the last couple of months?
Snobtown that we just did was great, actually. So there was Partisan's event, Snobtown, a brilliant event, and which is a queer event as well, so obviously it worked well for me. But we were open just really as a kind of chill out zone for that night, and it was just lovely to see people hanging out in here and to see it really busy. Obviously the last really big gorgeous one was Fat Out Fest, when we actually brought it over here in October, and that was really beautiful as well. It just came to life then in this new space. So it's the first one. So actually it was the first one was the most gorgeous one, but then also the last one we did last Friday, I think, was also really gorgeous. Just to see it full of people, basically, and just to have people enjoying it. It's just really nice. So. Just
for the listenership, in case anybody is looking, is it for hire?
Absolutely, yes, for hire for private parties. We're doing really private parties on Saturday nights and open to the public on Friday nights.
Right, and Friday night is the daiquiri night.
Daiquiri night on Friday, yeah, absolutely.
And do you serve daiquiris at private parties as well, though?
Oh, yeah, we can do. Yeah. It's not 2 for 1. But we can.
2 for 2. Because me and Bill had our joint birthday party over in the unit.
That was great.
And that was it Lurid then, or was it still Mirage?
I think it was kind of a bit of both then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, I hadn't kind of fully fleshed out the idea of when is it Mirage, when is it Lurid at that time. It was probably Mirage, I think, really. Yeah, so I would say it was Mirage probably then.
Yeah. Okay, I think, there's a lot of great information there. But to wrap up, how can people get involved in this whole project if they want to?
It's really, really important to me that people can get involved in this project very easily. There shouldn't be any barriers preventing anyone that wants to get involved. And so what I'm really keen to happen is that this is an entry point into the queer scene, perhaps for people that are new to Manchester or certainly new to the queer scene, where they can suddenly, easily access the alternative scene, find out what's going on and meet new people. And so what I would like is if it became known that this was a place that you could just show up to on your own. You don't need you don't need to come with a pal. Just come in, introduce yourself to me, and we'll hang out. We'll probably get lashed, and you can get involved, and I'll tell you about what's going on in the queer scene. That's a really big part of my plan for the bar is that it's somewhere that you come to on your own if you want. I mean, you can come with your pals, obviously, but it's for people that are new to the queer scene and new to Islington Mill as well.
Yeah, because it's weird. Like the Mill hasn't. It's kind of lost the kind of social side of itself over the last 5 years with the club space not being a club anymore. But I think now that that's coming back into like very much the centre of Islington Mill's identity, and also I feel like Islington Mill in itself has kind of come out the closet a bit and kind of is projecting a lot more of its queerness in its identity.
Great.
I think that's that's something that people both need and is really well facilitated here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I always felt Islington Mill would be the place for this.
Yeah.
Because it has a long queer history, and I just felt if it's going to be anywhere, it'll be at Islington Mill.
Yeah.
And it turned out, yeah.
Dreams do come true.
They do come true, yeah.
Yes. Post-apocalyptic, glow-in-the-dark nightmare dreams do come true.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Al. Thanks. Goodbye.